All right, so let me go ahead and share you on my screen, and we will jump into the first part of Color Me Happy. And I'm going to go ahead and make this larger. All right, so part one of Color Me Happy, see your everyday ordinary as extraordinary. As you can see, there are many Post-its in this book. It is also heavily underlined and just like many notes because it really was quite a profound read. So just a quick announcements, which is how we will start most sessions moving forward because we have a lot of cool things coming up. As I said, Brandi is going to be joining us in a couple of weeks, which I'm really, really excited. Definitely check out her work on Instagram as well. She has a whole community called Color Me Happy that she created. Her podcast is great as well. We have a bonus session coming up next month, the live Q&A with Penny Lane Shen. If you can attend live, I would highly encourage you to do so. It's a short one. It's about 30 minutes, but 30 minutes with Penny Lane is very valuable. She gives amazing advice. She's been an artist consultant and advisor for like 15 years. And then we have artist talks on May 16th. So if anyone in here is presenting, we're really looking forward to it. I love the artist talks. I'm so excited about it. So just a quick summary of the book, and I pulled this from the website, so I did not write this, but would you like to turn your ho-hum ordinary day into the best day simply through outlook and inspiration? Realistically, this doesn't always happen. We get tired, worn out, sick, lonely, or scared. Life happens, we embrace it, we roll with it, but aren't you exhausted by it all? What would happen if instead you flipped your outlook upside down and see that ordinary day as a day filled with memories that you can hold on to for the rest of your life? One thing I really, really appreciate about this book, and I have sent Brandi a few emails about it, but we'll get to chat with her in a couple weeks, but just how authentic and personal and vulnerable she was throughout the book. She really opened up and shared her journey as a mother, as a caregiver, as an artist with us. But there were so many things that I could relate to. I mean, I don't have children, I'm not a mother, and I still felt like I could relate to so much of what she wrote in the book. So it was very powerful. I'm going to share one of my favorite passages to open from the book. You are capable and strong. You can accomplish whatever you set your mind to. You will fail and you will get back up again. You will succeed and you will celebrate every accomplishment. You will love what you do. You will love the people you choose to surround yourself with. You will wake up each and every day happy to be you. You will wake up each day and relish in being alive because you are worth it. So one of the first passages that I'm going to read to you is in the first section of the book. Again, I pulled many excerpts and passages, but I still did not cover so much of the book. But I pulled what I thought would resonate with you. Not only do I see you and support you for who you are, I also believe that at this time we are too focused on what we think the world wants us to be and where we feel pressured to fit. We don't fit and we don't need to fit. You and I are as unique as a snowflake. There is not one other person in this world that will ever be like you. You need to be the best version of yourself as a gift to this world. And I bolded this part because this is something I'm really working on in my personal growth and development right now, which is actively working every day to be the better version of you, not just for you. Of course, that is very important, but also for everyone around you. And so I just really resonated with that. So the first journal prompt that I have for you is to jot down your thoughts in response to each question. And I did not come up with this. I pulled this directly from the book. Who do you want to be? What is the best version of you? What does that person look like? How do they feel? Are you living up to your fullest potential right now? Which I think is a hard question to answer because you might be working towards your potential, but I think we all have so much potential that has not even been unleashed yet. But I just want you to reflect on this for a moment and just jot down thoughts. Who is who is the best version of you? What do they like? Who are they? What qualities do they possess? What does it feel like to be that person? And in what ways are you striving towards becoming this, version of your highest self, of your best self? And I'll give you a moment to jot some thoughts down in response to these questions. Don't feel like you need to answer all of them, but just jot down some thoughts. I would love for us to do a quick share in the chat as well. Let me pull up. Let me see if there's a way that I can keep the chat pulled up while I share. Might have to minimize to see the chat, but I would love for us to just do a quick share in the chat of, what comes to mind when you think about the best version of yourself, because we might notice, and we probably will, that many of us have similar sort of qualities that we're striving for. And I will share in the chat as well. Let me see if it will pop up. I might have to minimize it. Ooh, I love that, Celeste. Celeste writes, I liked her discussion of gratitude. I want to remember to be grateful. My best self is present, curious, and eager about my day. I loved the gratitude piece too. That was one of the biggest things that stood out to me. So thank you for sharing that. And I think it's important to remember too that, the best version of ourselves, it's okay to not be that version all the time. I think we also have to understand that there will be times where we're not the best versions of ourselves, and we have to be forgiving of that as well. It's just part of the balance. Okay. I am going to move on to the next slide just because we have quite a bit to get through, but please feel free to share. Oh, I see some comments popping in. Paula, I'm able to manage my time and get everything I want to do in. I'm okay and take part in what I do. I know what are my non-negotiables are, and I'm excited about what is in front of me and available for each day. That's beautiful. Really, really beautiful. And Karen writes, the best version would be accepting. I'm trying to let go of some of my judgments about what the best version should be. Yes, yes. And that's really important too, right? Like, I notice that if I feel I'm not living up to my fullest potential, or I'm not being the best version of myself, what in response to a particular situation, I'm also working on not getting upset with myself or feeling shameful about that. I think accepting ourselves for how we are while we worked towards becoming the best versions of us is really important. So I love that you mentioned acceptance. I think that's essential. Nicole writes, I'm heading towards the best version, had some health challenges, but I feel great because I've taken charge and have become my own advocate with my doctors. Amazing. That's really important. It has taken almost 50 years, but I'm getting there. Mind, body, and spirit are on the right track. Oh, I love that, Nicole. And I love your positivity. I can feel your positivity. I can like hear your words saying this when I read it. Sandy writes, a more daring version of myself, being more in the moment, less torn between all the parts of my life. Yeah, being present is something that Brandi speaks about in the book as well. It's something that comes up over and over again, connecting to the present moment. Really, really important. Beautiful. Thank you all so much for sharing. So, okay. Some of you might have answered this, but you know, these prompts that Brandi shared in the book got me thinking about how important it is to focus our goals on who we want to be rather than what we want to accomplish. Both are important, but I truly feel, and I've been leaning into this idea a lot lately, that the latter cannot exist without the former, right? We can have these great goals and things we want to do, but can they really happen if we are not the best versions of ourselves? They might, but I truly feel that if we focus more on becoming the best versions of ourselves, all of those great things will follow suit. So something I started doing, I'm part of a group for women artists, and every Monday you kind of like share your goal in the Facebook group. And my goal always used to be like, get this done or accomplish this or power through these tasks. And now I've refocused it to say, this week, my goal is to be calm and centered in the face of challenges. Or this week, my goal is to be, optimistic and whatever it might be. But like starting to make that shift, because then I trust that everything else will follow. So one thing that I just want you to think about is, what is a step you can take towards becoming this best version of you? And you can drop it in the chat. It can be a tiny step. It can be a really, really small step. But we had so many great things that were shared in the chat, right? Like a more daring version of myself, an accepting version of myself. I know what my non-negotiables are. I'm excited for every day. I'm present and curious. So we have these visions in mind. We're holding them in our minds of who we want to be. What is one small step you can take towards becoming that version of yourself? Take a moment to think about it and just drop it right in the chat. And I'm going to I'll drop it in the chat too. So Grace shared being consistent and disciplined. Beautiful. I think the more specific you can be, that's going to be helpful too. Celeste shares, take a few moments each day away from the clutter and problems of the day. Yeah, that's going to keep you in gratitude for sure, or at least it will give you some space. Nicole writes, truly being intentional. These things have to remain in the forefront of our minds. Yes, absolutely. It's so, so important. The more we think about this and the more we reflect on it, the higher chance there is of those things actually happening, right? Because we're engaging in those thoughts more. Paula writes, space seems so important right now. Yeah, It's like tuning in to what you really feel like you need and responding to that. Beautiful. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead on to the next passage. So just to give you a bit of context before I read this out loud, there's a part in the book, and I actually knew a little bit about this because I do know Brandi, and have known her for a little while now. And when I saw her in New York in the fall, she told me a little bit about how in 1 year she painted 130 commissions, custom artworks. And she was sharing in the book that she was so unbelievably burnt out by the end of that year. She could barely string a sentence together. Like, she was chronically fatigued and really had to recover. So I'm going to share this passage with you, knowing a little bit about the situation. She writes, "I had earned the most I ever had financially from my art business. But for the work I was putting out and for what I was sacrificing, it wasn't enough in return. In truth, not even close. I knew something needed to change. So I decided to rethink what it means to be a creative and how it could be more sustainable rather than draining." So this passage in this part of the book got me thinking a lot about burnout, and a lot about balance. So the question for you, and this is pulled directly from the book, is there anything in your life that throws you off balance or takes too much of you? Would you like to change it? List 3 ways you can start. So even if you just come up with 1 way, take a moment to think about this. I will quickly share with you what came up for me, which is, I do work a lot, as I'm sure many of you do as well. And I realized that for me, if I were to integrate more breaks, just 5-minute breaks throughout the day, even if it's just 3 of them, I think it's going to make a big shift. So it can be something really small. That's what I want to emphasize. It can be something really small. But take a moment to really think on this. Something in your life that throws you off balance, takes too much of you. Maybe you don't need to change it completely. Maybe it's changing your approach or finding a way to keep that thing in your life, but in a way that feels better for you, if that makes sense, that maybe isn't so draining. And this is challenging because some of these things, if you are a caregiver, right, of an older parent, of a young child, there are certain things that we might not just be able to change the thing, but maybe there's something we can do to make it more manageable and make it more sustainable. And so that's kind of what I'm getting at here. We can't always change our circumstances, but we can change how we approach our circumstances. And something I've really been leaning into since reading this book. I'm just seeing Sandy's post. Spending more active moments of joy, like with music and poetry. Yeah, like things that just, simple things that make you happy, right? I will share with you that this past weekend, I did a social media detox, which, by the way, I highly encourage everyone to do at least once a month. Lately, I've been doing 1 a week for a full 24-hour period or 36 hours. And what I did this Saturday was, not only did I unplug from social media for over 24 hours, I listened to music all day, like literally all day on Saturday. I just had my headphones in. I was riding the bus around and just listening to music. And it was like the most grounded that I had felt in so long. And it reminded me of like when I used to do this as a teenager, back when we had the iPod. And I'd have my flip phone and I would just ride the bus or ride the train around with listening to my favorite bands. And it really brought me back to like who I am as a person and the things that I love. And Sandy, I love what you posted so much because it seems so small, but it's actually so significant, you know, it's so powerful. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I highly recommend the social media detoxes. They are really, really amazing. It's just, I think, an opportunity to reconnect with yourself. Okay. I'm going to share another passage with you that I found to be really, really powerful. But first, let me read Paula's note in the chat. I have a newly disabled dog. She has a lot of care and taking studio time away from me. I don't have help with her, but I have wanted to get back out walking. But once I started painting, my day slipped by. I'm now taking the walks with her as a way to find inspiration, take photos, and learn from her what it means to have that active joy. That's so, so beautiful. I love that you've changed, like, because that does require a bit of a perspective change, you know, and it's beautiful that you're finding the beauty in that. Sometimes with certain things, we do have to find the beauty. It's not always so immediate, but it's really rewarding when we can. Thank you for sharing that, Paula. So I'm going to share this passage with you. This is also from the beginning of the book. You don't need to be more. You are enough. You are defined by the people you touch. You are defined by the lives you impact. Likes and follows and what other people think of you are not the definitive way to live. They don't need your soul and reason for being. You are enough because of the way you love. You are enough because of the way you laugh and cry and live. You are enough. This feeling of enoughness is this topic of enoughness, I think is so important. I don't know about you all, but I've had so many times in my life where I have not felt enough, and I still experience that. I think it's part of being human. Social media detoxes are great because I think that sometimes I actually love social media and I think it's a really great tool, but I think that sometimes it can exacerbate those feelings. What I want you to do is to jot down a mantra that is specifically related to being enough. Come up with something that feels good for you, just one line, one phrase, and something that feels really good for you. I would encourage you, after you come up with this, to write it on a Post-it note, to stick it by your mirror or somewhere visible where you can see it, and repeat it each day. Because I think that it takes a level of repetition for us to really understand and feel this on a deep level. You know, I think on a conceptual level, it's easy to say, oh, I know that I'm enough. But to really know that and to really feel that to the core of your being is different. You know, for me, the mantra that I came up with is, I am enough in spite of my flaws. You know, like I have these flaws, and sometimes, you know, we all have flaws. And sometimes I can be really hard on myself, but I am still enough, even though I have these flaws. And I think this goes back to acceptance. It goes back to self-love. It goes back to just knowing that you don't have to, you know, you can work towards becoming the best version of yourself. But while you are on that journey, you're still enough. It's not like you are not enough until you become your higher self, you're the best version of you. You're enough right now while you're on that journey. So jot down something that feels good for you. And I would love for us to share in the chat, and I'll go ahead and share mine. And I'm going to just slightly rephrase it. Which is, even with my flaws, I am enough. Oh, I love that. I'm glad to hear that, Karen. Paula writes, I am enough as I continue to find my way. Ooh, that's a really good one. It's a really, really good one, Paula. I love the way that you worded that. The other thing too is I think when it comes to thinking about our flaws, right? Flaws are not a negative thing. We all have them. Celeste shares, Victoria, this reminds me of a very bad SNL skit. For me, maybe saying my life is enough works better for me. Yeah, whatever works best for you. It's just the idea of it, right? Like, I am enough. I am strong and healthy. Thank you for sharing that, Nicole. Celeste, you'll have to send me that SNL skit because now I'm curious. Drop me the link later in an email if you can. Amazing. Beautiful, beautiful. Ah, Maddie, this one is hitting close to home for me. My enoughness isn't tied to my productivity. I think I need to print that out in capital letters and post it to my door and probably everywhere where I can see it. That's a really, really big one. And I think in the culture and society we live in, that is something that is so ingrained and perpetuated. So that's great. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. This passage is a little bit longer, but I love it so much. Brandi writes, are you ready to join me in seeing your everyday ordinary as extraordinary? To begin, you must make space to let in the magic. That's right, the magic that sits in front of your very eyes every single second of every single day. To make space, you must let go of all the things holding you back, such as anxieties and fears and things from the past. I'm not asking you to ignore these issues and emotions that demand to be felt. They need to be acknowledged and dealt with. However, if we linger too long on our traumas, they will take hold of us and pull us into their depths deeper and deeper until it is almost impossible not to drown. I know this. I have traveled down into these depths and fought hard, tooth and nail, with all I had to swim back to the light. And I get chills every time I read this passage because there is so much magic around us. And sometimes our day-to-day can feel mundane, but even just taking a moment to say, right now, at this moment, on April 11th, 2023, we are all together here, as a community. Like, that's beautiful. That's really powerful. And that will never be repeated again in history, ever. Like that, this moment will never happen again. So I think when we really understand how powerful these moments are, it does start to shift our perspective. But going back to this idea of removing, like making space for the magic, right? To make space for something, you have to clear something out. I want you to take a moment to think about something that might be consciously or perhaps even subconsciously holding you back. It could be in your personal life, it could be in your art career, it could be in your creative practice. I want you to write it down. Once you identify what this thing is, the question I have for you is, have you taken any steps to heal this wound or begin the healing process? And it's okay if you haven't yet. And if you haven't yet, how might you begin to release its control and move forward? So again, it's not about burying something down and just moving on, but it's how can you really start to overcome this and know that it probably will be a process. But it starts with acknowledging what the thing is and thinking about how you might start taking steps to heal. Take a moment to jot that down. If you feel comfortable to share it in the chat, feel free. If you don't, that is absolutely fine. I know that this is a bit of a personal, and deep question, but feel free to share if you would like. The most important thing is that you just get clear on what that is. Things can't control us as much if we are aware of their presence, right? And we've talked about this in so many sessions, but if it's when we're not aware that can be dangerous or harmful to our growth. So it's really important to be aware. What might be holding you back right now? Your personal life, your art career, your creative practice. Take a moment to reflect on that. I'm going to share with you mine as well. Yeah. Erin, did I share with you about Ken Honda's book about money mindset that like literally changed?
I remember I wrote it down, but I didn't do anything about it since then.
I can confidently tell you it's life-changing. And I'll share you with my partner would be fine with me sharing this with you all, but he has really, really struggled with money mindset in a very, very deep way for his whole life. And this book changed his life, and it has actually really made a positive impact in our relationship. We decided to read it together last summer. And a fun side note I'll tell you is that he wrote an essay to the author about how much it impacted him. And the author, who's like very famous, met with him for 15 minutes over Zoom in response to receiving the letter. And it was amazing. Like it is life-changing. So for anyone in here where if money mindset is a block for you, order the book. It's by Ken Honda. It is Happy Money. I had no idea. I thought, oh, I'll just read it with him, to kind of like support him. And it actually completely changed my perspective as well. So it is, I think, the most powerful book out there with money and mindset. And it's on Audible as well. So you can listen. Well, yeah. Grace, fear of failure. That's such a big one for me too. And I think for many of us, thank you for sharing that, Grace. I've taken steps in releasing its control by one, confronting it, talking about it, and then asking myself, what's the worst that can happen? And try to manage it in small aspects. Yes, and that's the best thing you can do. I think fear of failure is something we can all relate to. And that question, right? What's the worst that can happen in this situation is so important because oftentimes we realize that the worst thing is not even that bad. I will share mine quickly, which is, I was going to write in the chat, but I'll just tell you verbally, which is trying to make things perfect. And that does hold me back because it keeps me from doing them. So that's also fear though. That's totally fear-based. Paula writes, I wanted to be a painter, but being a teacher was valid. So I did all the things that I should. Wife, mom, daughter, teacher. Took all the classes, did all the things until one day, 26 years later, I said it's time for me and jumped into my studio full time. That's amazing. And I didn't know that. I still get pushed back. I am retired. Why I'm working so hard. Oh, what am I doing? It's hard to step up and say, I'm doing what I've always wanted to do. I have no regrets about teaching, no regrets about anything, but I'm so glad I'm saying yes to me. Paula, that's really, really admirable. And you should feel incredibly proud of yourself. When we are older and we look back on our lives, the hardest thing is to be in a position where you are regretting those chances you didn't take, those things that you didn't do for yourself. And the fact that you made that decision for you is something that, you should really feel incredibly proud of. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, I'm going to share this passage with you. We are all human. We only have the capacity to take on so much in one day. All these things can overwhelm you and make you feel like you are constantly carrying this load of heavy water buckets, only to find that at the end of your journey, those buckets are empty. The way to carry all this is to not try to do it all in one day. Break down and try to do a few small tasks here and there throughout the day. When you practice self-awareness and notice emotions of feeling or overwhelm, take note and take pause. This is something I'm really working on right now as well, is that self-awareness when it comes to feeling overwhelmed. Brandi goes on to say, there is this thing called burnout. I tend to hit it every once in a while. I just go, 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 and there is never enough time in a day. Or I don't realize I'm burnt out and my body gets sick, which takes longer to recover from. What should I have done in the first place? Realize that I should take a second to take care of myself, not just sporadically, but constantly throughout the day. So I think this is going to be a big one for many of us. When it comes to rest, it's important to remember that we need it. So I want to ask you, how do you feel about the way you're integrating rest into your life right now? Do you actively carve out time to rest, or do you need to set reminders? What are a few small ways you can build in rest breaks throughout the day? Something I didn't include that Brandi talks about in the book is that rest can come in many forms, right? It doesn't always have to mean that you're literally sitting down with your eyes closed. It could mean that you're stretching. It could mean you're taking a walk around the block. It could mean that you are taking a few minutes to listen to music. It can come in many forms. So I think one of the key questions here is, what does rest look like for you? Or what are the different ways that it can look like for you? I think for me, it's probably stretching and breathing and getting back into my body, especially if you are someone who's on the computer a lot. It can also mean closing my eyes and listening to music. And oftentimes it can mean taking a physical walk outside for 15 minutes. So get clear on what rest looks like for you. And then be really honest with yourself if you are integrating this regularly enough, because I find that many of us are not. And I certainly am not, but I'm working on it. And then I'd love to share in the chat. Celeste, I'm reading your comment about hard to focus. I wanted to ask you, do you have, or have you tried setting a schedule for yourself? And maybe you already have one in place of like, okay, here's what I'm going to do at this time and that kind of thing.
That's the other part I loved about her book. I
Mm-hmm.
have never been able to set a schedule, and she agrees. I mean, she talks of the fact that she fit in time all through her parenting and her work life, and that's really how it works for me.
Yeah.
So I kind of, it's not so much focus. I guess that was the wrong word, but I think what Paula was saying is so true. As a parent and a teacher, or as a professional, trying to sort of do things in order to get by and to keep a balance. It might not have been the best balance, but it was a balance.
Yeah.
It just takes a lot.
It does. It does. Absolutely. And it's so different for everyone, like you said. Like some people need a structure and a schedule. I'm one of those people, but for some people that doesn't work, like it doesn't work. And you have to be in sync and in tune with what works for you. So I'd love to hear in the chat, what does rest look like for you? What are the different ways that you find rest, or that you choose to rest? And if you feel like you're not integrating that enough during your days, how can you integrate it just a little bit more? It doesn't have to be a 3-hour rest break in the middle of the workday, but it could be a 5-minute or a 10-minute break in the middle of a work day. You know, if you're like me and you find yourself eating lunch at the computer while you're working, that's something to look at. You know, Brandi goes into detail in the book about her experience with burnout. I have also had 2 really close friends to me who are also artists that have experienced really intense burnout. And so it happens, and it's really important to take those preventative measures, and you'll also just be happier, which is a good thing. I find that I never regret taking a rest break, but I do often regret overworking myself and then suffering the consequences after. I'm curious to see what how each of you feel about that. Nicole writes, reading has been so fun lately. I also love a hot bath. Oh my gosh, yes. And I love to paint early in the morning. That is all rest to me. That's beautiful. It does take a lot, Paula writes. I care for my grandson every day from 1 to 4, so I know I can work in the morning and evening. Now that is also broken up with my dog, I definitely need to find time to rest. I made a pact with myself that I would not eat my breakfast, lunch, or dinner in the studio. That's really, really good. Snacks are okay. I was trying to meditate each day, so I'll work that back into before my painting sessions again. Great. That's really, really positive. And Celeste shares, saying no to things has created more time for rest in my life and more focus. Absolutely. A good question to ask yourself when opportunities come up and you're on the fence about taking them is this opportunity in line with my goals? And if the answer is yes, go for it. If the answer is no, you know, you probably shouldn't do it. But there are times that sometimes we just have to do things, I think, to get to the next level. But it's a good question to come back to. And Karen writes, I'm aware that I haven't spent enough time in nature recently, and I can feel it. Yeah, I can relate to that. I mean, living in New York City, that's a really tough thing that you sacrifice to live here. And you do start to feel it. It actually is like a palpable feeling. And it can be really intense, but just missing being in the trees or, you know, being by a body of water. I totally hear you on that. I'm kind of experiencing that right now. Amazing. All good things to think about. I'm going to share another passage with you that I really, really loved, which is, this is Brandi writes, this is the practice I like to call I get to. When you wake up, the first thing you have to do is take into account what you get to do, not what you have to do. It is simply changing the words. When you think about your I get tos, life becomes a cup that is half full. This just really makes you ponder. What do I already have? What do I have to lose? And what is important to me? So I want you to jot down, or you can just share right in the chat, your I get tos. So here are mine. I get to wake up and eat a warm bowl of oatmeal in my beautiful kitchen. I get to stretch and go for a beautiful walk outside before starting work. Not every day. We're working on that. I get to go to work and do what I love with people I love. You know, we have to remind ourselves sometimes, I get to do this. Like I'm so lucky that I get to do this. We become so accustomed to the day to day. And again, this is gratitude is something that is emphasized throughout the entire book. So just share even 1 or 2 I get tos in the chat. What are some things that you get to do every day? And when we just change it from I have to, I get to, just changing that one word completely flips our mindset around it. I will share with you that my fiance always laughs at me and teases me because my oatmeal is my first breakfast. My real breakfast happens about an hour after the oatmeal. But go ahead and share in the chat. I think this is such an important exercise, and it's something you can just start to do throughout the day, throughout the week, even after our session this evening. Like when you find yourself waking up and saying, oh, I have to work today, or I have to ship out this painting and it's going to take forever to package it up. I have to apply to this open call and it's going to take me so long to go through the application process. Like whatever those things are, remind yourself that you get to do those things. And that's such a privilege. Paula writes, I get to see my old girl doing dog things again, walking in her wheels and sniffing the good sniffs. That's really cute. One thing I just want to add on to this as well is that it's important, if you are just having a tough day, I'm not ever a fan of toxic positivity, right? Like if you're having a rough day, you can be honest with yourself and say, this is crap today. I feel crappy today. You don't have to, feel like you have to be positive and optimistic all the time, but these are just things that you can do on a regular basis to start to create a shift in your mindset. It is also, the balance to that is being honest. If you're just having a really tough moment and saying, I'm having a tough moment right now. I think both things can exist at the same time. Nicole shares, I get to work with children who absolutely love art. I get to help them express their creativity. I love that, Nicole. That's really powerful. What other I get tos do we have? And sometimes these might be things that we tend to think of as like, oh, this is, I know that for me, some days just the tasks, right? Of like, oh, I have to wash these dishes. I get to wash these dishes. I mean, it's not the most exciting thing, but sometimes I think, okay, well, if I wash these dishes, it's actually, I'm plugging into the present moment. I'm not on my phone. I'm not on my computer. I can feel the warm water running on my hands. I can put my headphones in while I wash up. Like you can find the positive. Some things it just takes it's a little bit harder to find the positive, but it is there. Grace shares, like Nicole, I get to teach kids how to swim and sing songs. Makes the day so much better. Yeah, being around children, I really miss that sometimes. They are so, so amazing. And Paula shares, I get to have the best talks with my 5-year-old grandson. I love that kids are coming up over and over again. They really are like the best energy to be around. Since it's a few steps from my back door, I also get to see my family and help out my mom. She's 94. I get to play and paint. I get to share my work. I get to work with a community of like-minded artists, and I get to share my knowledge. Like when you really look at all the things you get to do, it's kind of amazing, right? When you look at your life. And it really does, acknowledging this really does keep you in that place of gratitude. It's beautiful. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next slide, but feel free to share if you haven't yet and would like to. Okay, this is going into fear because it comes up in every single book we read, and I think we all know why. We all deal with it. Brandi writes, I too have all those terrifying thoughts that sneak in through the cracks, and they are very real fears. I have become hyper aware of when they decide to pop their ugly heads in. I notice it mostly late at night, or if I'm having a particularly tough day because the baby was up too many times the night before, when I'm so mentally exhausted, I can't handle much more. That's when I start to doubt myself and my journey. What I have learned, and am still learning, is that I have to allow myself space to rest and recharge. Focus on the moment right now that I am in control of. Quiet my mind, breathe, and keep a mental check on my self-talk. So I want to come back to this idea of self-talk, the way that we're talking to ourselves in our minds, in our heads throughout the day. What helps you to keep your self-talk in check when you find yourself having those negative thoughts? This isn't good enough. How will I ever get this done? Today is going to be such a hard day. I had that exact thought yesterday because I wasn't feeling well, Today's going to be so hard. How am I going to get all this done? What helps you to take note of that self-talk and shift it? And again, it doesn't mean you're not acknowledging it. It's important to be honest with how you're feeling, but what helps you to not go down that spiral to where you are all of a sudden going into a place that feels really heavy and dark and isn't healthy. I think we all experience this, where your fears just start to take over, the intrusive thoughts start to take over. What helps you to kind of acknowledge, but kind of nip it in the bud before it goes too far? I'd love to hear strategies that work for you in the chat, because I think that these strategies will be helpful for all of us. Maddie shares, just going back to the previous prompt, I get to work for a company that values flexibility. That's amazing. That's a really, really important quality. Also with great coworkers, I get to make a lot of our household's meals at home. I have space in my house to paint. I get to walk my dog and get some fresh air each morning. These might seem like small things, but these are actually such beautiful things, They're really powerful. And thank you for sharing that. And I love, because really what this book is about is seeing our, part of the title is see your everyday ordinary as extraordinary, but we have to remember that these seemingly small things are actually really, really powerful. And we're so lucky we get to do these things. So what are some strategies? What helps you when you find your self-talk starting to get negative? How do you handle that? What is helpful for you? Celeste writes, I find that if I feel like I should go and hide my head under the covers, I just do. Naps are rejuvenating. Often I just go outside and look at the sky in order to reset. Walks are also a great way to change my mindset. Absolutely. I think just that act of physically pulling yourself away for a few minutes, take a walk outside, get some fresh air, it does help. It gives you a moment of pause, and it creates space between you and these, intrusive thoughts. It just creates a little bit of space between. What else is helpful when you start to find yourself having these intrusive thoughts, these moments of, that feel like the fear is starting to take over a little bit? I know that for some people it's writing. There's an artist I'm working with who does morning pages. Is anyone in here familiar with morning pages? Where you write every morning. I think Julia Cameron developed that, or, advocated for that. And even if it's just writing for 20 seconds, you just wake up and it's the first thing you do is just write something down. And I know that for some artists and just some people, that can be a really, really helpful strategy to kind of combat those negative thoughts, especially first thing in the morning when our stress levels can be a little bit higher, right when we're waking up. But what else is helpful for you? Paula writes, this is so timely. I had that day today. I visited my childhood best friend in intensive care. She is critical but showing improvement. It was so hard to see. Then there were other issues at home, so there wasn't any studio time. The list seems to be piling up and the voices start to creep in. I also walk, move, and or sit with my eyes shut for a minute, breathe, and start by thanking every part of my body from my toes all the way up to my nose. I'm so sorry you had that day today, Paula, and I'm really sorry to hear about your friend. And I really appreciate you sharing that with us. And I think that taking a moment to just reconnect with your physical body is a really great way to get out of your head for a moment. And Karen writes, I'm working on self-compassion to work on this, still figuring it out though. Yeah, it's a process. It is absolutely a process. It's a journey. I have found the most helpful thing for me is what Paula shared, which is when those thoughts happen, get connected to my physical body. And sometimes I have to do that multiple times a day. But it is the most helpful tool that I have found as well. So thank you all for sharing. Okay, I'm going to share this passage with you, which we've kind of already been chatting about. Actively search for opportunities for inspiration. Listen to music, make playlists, find a podcast of interest to you, read books or listen to books. Find the thing that gets your heart pumping. It can motivate you on the most tired and frustrating days and take you out of any funk. I can guarantee that if you introduce a regular and positive routine into your life, your body and mind will come to expect and appreciate it. Visualize, draw, or write something you'd like to incorporate into your everyday and help your creative routine. And I would love for you all to do that now. So visualize, draw, or write. And this prompt is taken from the book as well. Visualize, draw, or write something you'd like to incorporate into your everyday. It could be something that you're already doing that you just want to do more of. You know, Karen mentioned spending time in nature. Sandy mentioned listening to music or reading more poetry. You know, just take a moment to think about it. What is something that you'd like to incorporate more into your daily life? And then how might you act on that? Because part of it, I know for me, is like I'll come up with the thing and then I might do it for a few days and then I drop off. So I think part of this is like holding ourselves accountable when it comes to finding joy, which feels silly because it's like but it's true. When we're busy, when we're working, when we have a lot going on, we can easily forget about those things. So just take a moment to think about it. You can share it in the chat if you would like. You can even just visualize it. You know, I love this idea of starting to envision how we can make our days better. I think for me, it's more stretching breaks and listening to more music, especially in moments of stress and moments of frustration. Those two things become really helpful in those situations. One thing, if you did read the book, but if not, I can just tell you that one thing Brandi really emphasizes, and I think I might have even mentioned this already, is that she is a really big believer in having a routine, like having a routine in place that you follow every day. And for her, I think it's like running. I know she's an avid runner, but it's, you know, and I think there's a level of this where we have to be realistic and say, okay, some of these things cannot happen every single day, but maybe I can make a goal to do them 3 times a week, 4 times a week, and think about what works for you. But we have to actively carve out time for joy. We have to actively carve out time for rest, right? I did a podcast recently with DeMarcus McGoy, and he was sharing in the podcast episode how important it is to schedule time for rest. And I actually think we need to schedule time for fun as well. Because if we don't, oftentimes it doesn't happen. You know, it's so easy to get caught up in the responsibilities and the hustle and the grind of everyday life, that we really do have to be intentional and cognizant about this. Nicole, I meant to ask you because I know I'm going to forget. Did you know DeMarcus? Because I know you're both from Dallas and I saw you commented on the podcast episode.
No, I didn't, but I have seen him through a couple of galleries here, and so it came back up when you had them on. So when I listened to the episode, it was so good. It
It
was
was-
really good. Some of the knowing how established he is and
Yeah.
some of the fears he had, that was very enlightening to me because I only see the up, through the galleries here. So
Yeah.
to hear and then the part where he spent the year just gathering the work, I think that was, the production year and then the showing year, that really helped me a lot too. But I did, and I hope to meet him when I
Yeah.
know he said on the episode he'll have a show here in the fall, so maybe I'll pop in.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you for listening. And I had to ask because I know he knows so many people, and I saw that you're
So
both
many.
so many people, and I saw you're both from Dallas, and I'm like, oh my
know.
gosh, wait, maybe they know each other. Like, how crazy would that be?
No, but he's out there. So, but for me, it's about getting out there.
Yes,
So,
yeah, it was a really powerful
Mhm.
episode. For anyone who hasn't listened yet on my podcast, the conversation, I think it's 2 episodes back with DeMarcus McCoy. Really amazing. He talks about growing your confidence as an artist, and I highly recommend listening to it. It's one of the most powerful episodes that I think we've had on the podcast. It was just beautiful. So, okay, we're gonna move on to, this was a good one. We are faced in this life with a never-ending reel of choices, paths that split in either direction. Let us choose the trail that can lead us toward our ultimate goals. Let's choose not to travel down the perilous path that is filled with treacherous turmoil and icy heartbreak. I truly believe in and am consciously working moment by moment on pouring energy into constructive places. Yes, it takes awareness and deliberate effort to decide how to move through the motions of your day. You have a choice. And I really want to emphasize this because it's something that I'm working on reminding myself in every situation, especially when the obstacles arise, which is I have a choice in terms of how I'm going to respond to this situation. I've had to do this a lot in the past few weeks. Just small things that pop up, right? Like, or sometimes big things. I have a choice on how I'm going to live out today. I have a choice in terms of my mindset for today. I have a choice in terms of how I'm going to take care of myself today. And it does take a level of additional effort when we are being that intentional, right? I think we can mindlessly move through our day pretty easily, but change and growth do not happen that way. Change and growth happen as a result of us being really intentional and making that deliberate effort. So I really wanted to share this passage with you because I think it's such an important reminder. This is the final quote from the book that I wanted to share with you. It was so hard to choose because I've pretty much dog-eared and post-it marked every page. But Brandi writes, when we get caught in the rigmarole of all the small things, we can sometimes forget what a miracle it is, what a miracle it takes for us to be here every day. There is nothing more extraordinary than the simple fact that we are alive and will one day cease to exist. And I mean, I literally have chills just reading that now because we do have to remember the impermanence of us being here on this beautiful planet. We're so lucky. We have this opportunity. Even us all connecting right now and being in this community together is a really powerful thing. Like, we get to do all these amazing things. And I just think it's important to not lose sight of that because it's very easy to lose sight of that. And this book for me, and I hope for even if you didn't read it, but even just from reading the quotes and hearing about it this evening, that the takeaway here is to be grateful and to try and stay in this place of gratitude as much as we can and to zoom out and really see the bigger perspective. Or the larger sort of vision of what is happening. Because sometimes when we're so in it, it's hard to have that clear idea of what it actually is. An amazing book. Let me take you off my screen share and we can move into our discussion. And I'd love to use this as an opportunity to just hear about how you are all feeling. Thank you for all being so vulnerable and open and sharing in the chat. What has stood out to you this evening? What has resonated with you? Where are you at? This is really a totally open conversation.
I think when you just asked me about Demarcus, it made me think, and then reading her book, I am living what I had wished 4 years ago, uh, 12 years ago, raising my daughter. Like I was her, you couldn't do a whole lot of things because you was raising your child. So you had to put a lot of your practice on the back burner. And I actually am getting to do what I have always wanted to do, and so that's what I'm grateful for, being able to do the things, actually paint every day. It's in my house. I can wake up, I can go to bed doing it. I can have a community. I'm part of a community. I'm just very close to what I had envisioned for my life.
I
And
love
so
that
just
so
wanted to say that.
much.
Yeah.
Oh, Nicole, that's huge. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah. 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 It just came to me. I said, wait, this is what I wanted, I'm
I
actually doing it.
Yeah, and sometimes we forget that. One thing that helps me is to think like my teenage self would be really proud of where I'm at right now. Like she would be kind of floored with how I'm living my life. And I think for all of you, right? Dial back for a moment to those younger versions of yourselves that dreamed that you were painting all the time or making your artwork, that dreamed you were doing the things you were doing now. And I just love that perspective, Nicole. Thank you for that.
There's quite a few popular artists here in Dallas, and I do follow some of them, and some of them follow me, and they like my work. And I wouldn't have that opportunity to get the work out there if it wasn't for social media. And so, I'm doing it. The work. I'm just doing it. That's what I feel. And I think one more thing, though. I think you even said in that same podcast you might be having Avita on.
Yeah.
Did you say that?
Well, I invited her. I haven't heard back yet, but her and I did an Instagram live. Yeah, who Demarcus also knew, Evita, and he also knew Sir Idris, which was the cover artist for one of our first issues of the magazine. It's just such a small world. But yeah, Evita, I'm gonna send her that follow-up. But we did an Instagram live.
Oh, yes, I would. Oh, I would love to meet her too. So yeah, it's crazy.
Right now. I will
Like
get
the 6 degrees of separation is so true because I've worked with you and been working with you and everything, and the people that I would like to meet here. It's like, yeah.
It's all connected. Definitely go to Demarcus
Yeah.
because I think it would be awesome for him to meet you too. And
Absolutely.
it's important to have these connections in the art community.
Yeah, I know. That's so great. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Who else would like to share? What came up for you this evening? Did anything stand out to you or any aha moments that you had, whether they were big or small? I'd love to hear from you.
And maybe I can join in.
Yes.
I didn't read the book yet, so I didn't know what to expect from the title. I expected something totally different. And the funny thing is that finding the beauty was something I was really thinking a lot about this week because I feel really drained at the moment. So it hit me at the right moment. And I took so many things out of this session, so many things I have to think about.
I love that. It's so funny when things like this happen at the time that we're already kind of thinking about them. I feel like it's this really serendipitous thing sometimes. And I'm so glad that it's been beneficial for you, Sandy. I love that. Thank you.
I know with the book she offered, when you purchased the book, she offered the audiobook. So I listened to the audiobook, but I did have times where I had to pause it in because she lost her mom and I lost my mom, and she cried most of the book. And so
Yeah,
sometimes I was listening, I was like, oh God,
it was
yeah.
heavy. And I didn't go so much into that because I will tell you, the book has it's a journey. There are some really high highs, but the parts with her mom, I found myself like crying. I found myself calling my mom to tell her how much I loved her. And she's like, "Why are you calling me? It's like 10 o'clock at night." Like, let me go to sleep. I'm like, "Mom, I just need you to know." Because it's really, and you hear her crying. I listened on Audible and I went through the book physically as well to kind of underline and pull passages. But hearing her through the tears is, yeah, it's intense because she's so raw with her emotions, which is such a beautiful thing. But I can imagine that if you have experienced something similar, that's probably really, really hard to listen to. And I'm so sorry that you experienced that loss, Nicole. I'm so sorry.
I really appreciated that also. As you read it, she's so positive, but then she would be so vulnerable. And so many things, when you're my age, you go through long periods of grief. And, having to absorb that and somehow still come up with this sort of focus to move forward. It's a beautiful book. Although the cynic in me thinks she's still a little too positive, but I'm working on that.
I will tell you though, like, and having had the chance to meet Brandi, she is just so raw and so open, and I think she has this beautiful ability to find the lessons, and it's like that's what I took away from the book because I haven't experienced grief, but I know that I will, I was on the phone with my grandparents the other day and I just found myself like just tearing up, knowing that we will only have so many conversations left. There will only be so many more happy Easter phone calls. And these things hit you in these moments sometimes, and you realize like just the weight of everything. But I think Brandi has such a beautiful way of uncovering the lessons behind, what we can learn, what we can take away. Because I know that she has been in some really, really dark periods through grief. Yeah, we read about in the book. And I don't think she tried to sugarcoat those parts, but I think she tried to, yeah. It
I
was,
agree.
yeah, it's a beautiful balance.
It was, yeah, I thought it was great how you just said she was able to collect her thoughts and then put them in a book form, because she didn't talk about how long her mother had passed, unless I don't remember that part. But to like bottle it up and put it into a book was amazing, actually.
It was, and I'm sure
And
even
still
just
raise her children.
yeah, and I'm sure even just the act of writing the book was probably so therapeutic. And honestly, I have been wanting to write a book for a while, and even her just writing this and publishing it inspired me. I'm like, if she can write this beautiful book, maybe I could write a book, because she shared how she really struggled with writing growing up. And I thought that was so amazing. Like, wow, you had this limiting belief, right? Which is also something we've talked about so much in our sessions, these limiting beliefs that we hold. And she had this limiting belief for many years that she wasn't a good writer. And I mean, the book is freaking phenomenal and so well written. And it's
It
like,
really is like a storyteller.
yeah, I totally got that too. I kept thinking that word kept buzzing around in my head. I'm like, she's really good at storytelling. Like, yeah, it was amazing.
I know this is an aside, but I just read a fabulous book that I want to share with artists everywhere. It's called Color. And it's the history of, and this woman is going to write a book, and a friend tells her, well, you need a story. And she goes through each color, indigo, from black and white down to indigo. And the magic of her experiences, where she travels all over the world and finds the source of pigments up to the point where, they're all synthetic now. It's just beautiful.
Who's the
I'll
author?
give
I'm
you the,
making it.
yeah, I'll get it to you. I
Yeah.
can find it.
You
It's
want
an amazing book, and just especially if you want to write a book, it's just incredible. And it's so fun hearing the stories behind the colors. I want to go to Australia and find ochre, and I want to go to India and see, or I want to go to Mexico and see the snails that they squeeze to make this red. And I want to see the purple that all the kings and queens of the Renaissance wanted to wear. I mean, I found myself going back and forth to the internet looking up famous paintings and color charts, and just amazing.
Ooh, you have to share.
Okay,
Yeah.
I will find the author. I'll stop
Drop
talking.
it in the chat, and then what I'll do, I think our book list is
It's long. It's 1,100 pages, Victoria.
oh wow, okay. Well, maybe it's a 2-month book that we cover in the book club.
It's by Victoria Finlay.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's something we could do after the holidays, and we do it for like a 2-month period or something like that. I mean, it sounds really, really beautiful, and I would love to check it out.
And I know Maddie left early, but one of the things she talked about in our pod was this idea, and I would like this too, to talk about the language of art. I mean,
Yeah.
I know it's good to talk about these emotional things, but as an artist, I think it would be fun to look at the dialogues that people have about art and what makes art, and
Yeah.
how the different types, I know it's a segue from where you're going, but it
No,
would be fun.
I'm so open to different kinds of books, Celeste, and I think we actually have some books coming up this year that are more centered on that. I think a lot of the books we've read so far have been very focused on sort of self-development, and which I do think is the
Which have been great,
yeah,
very good.
But I'm super open. Just know that I'm very flexible. I'm very open, and I think we can cover so much ground in here. So, always open to book suggestions. And if anyone else has any, you can feel free to email me at any time. I will start creating the book list for next year within the next few months.
And I got this book, I don't know if all of you use Libby or Hoopla. The library has a service where you can download books for free. You
Ooh,
get them for 3 or 4 weeks, and you can search their catalogs. I like Libby better, Libby. It's an app you can download for free. And if you have a library card, you just put it in and the world's yours.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's an amazing resource. Oh, I love that. Thank you, Celeste. Amazing. All right, everyone. Well, I think this was a really powerful session. I knew that it would be, but I want to thank you all so much for joining. I'm really, really grateful for this beautiful community that we have. I always look forward to our sessions, and I cannot wait for you to meet Brandi. She is an amazing human.
That's gonna be fun.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun in a couple of weeks. So I will see you then. Have a restful evening, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye, everyone.